So, welcome to another issue of the Hot Seat with Anna, where business experts get grilled, not flattered. Today's guest is Stacey Randall, who wrote the bestseller, Generating Business Referrals Without Asking. Sounds bold, right? We are going to test that claim. So, welcome, Stacey.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks for being here. So, let's start with the obvious one, referrals without asking. Sounds like great in theory, but why would anyone refer if you don't ask?
Yeah, it's funny. Well, I would say the thousands of folks that have had success receiving referrals by not asking for them would tell you that it's absolutely not theory and 100% of a proven process. And that's the thing that's important to remember is just because I'm teaching how to generate referrals without asking, there's still a process and a procedure and a methodology behind it. And I've been teaching this way to generate referrals without asking now for over a decade. And what I really find to be more prevalent with folks is believing that referrals only happen because you ask is actually false thinking. Just ask really anyone who's ever asked for referrals and hasn't had success or felt awkward doing it. Very, very few people, usually the minority of folks, actually have consistent ongoing success when they ask for referrals. The majority of folks don't, and this just provides a different way. And that's because asking for referrals violates the science behind how referrals actually work.
Sounds good. Well, in your book, you actually say that it's relationships that drive referrals. So why do so many people with strong networks still get no referrals?
That's because having people in your network is not really the same thing as having relationships with people who can and will refer. Most people just misunderstand the type of relationship you need to generate referrals from people and to do that without asking. They think it's based on proximity or how often they see someone or how often they comment on someone's social media post, right? And that's actually not the type of relationships that are going to drive referrals.
Hmm. You also talk about emotion and trust as the trigger for referrals. But how do you control a feeling without crossing into the line of manipulation? So how do you do it without manipulating people or feeling like you do?
Yeah, so actually, that's something I want to correct. So, what triggers referrals is actually desire and opportunity. It's not just emotion and trust. So, when you think about referrals and what triggers them to happen, it's actually desire and opportunity. Emotions and trust alone will not trigger referrals, and you shouldn't be like relying on that too, because that's where you get into that feeling of manipulation. It actually doesn't matter how much I trust you or how I feel about you. That doesn't mean if I don't come across opportunities to be able to refer people to you who need what you do, I'm not going to be able to refer. Right. So it's not about that, the emotions or the trust. It's actually about the desire and the opportunity. Now, with desire and opportunity, I do only control desire. And that means, and when I say control desire, right, what I mean is I don't mean I can snap my fingers and you can just give me a referral, right? What I mean is that you would choose to refer me and not one of my competitors, and that desire to choose me is based on the relationship we have and how I nurture that relationship, how I maintain that relationship, and how you feel about me as we are continuing our relationship. And so, of course, trust and emotions are a part of that. But the desire of control has more to do with the fact that you would choose me over someone else. But that still doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to have opportunity to refer to you. And that is just as important as desire.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Mhm.
A lot of my clients are in cutthroat industries, legal, accounting, real estate. Do you feel that, everyone is competing for the same client or batch of clients? So do you feel that your approach of asking for referrals without asking is a little bit too soft for such competitive industries?
Yeah, I feel like that question is kind of rooted in like a little bit of scarcity mentality. Because I think about with the pleasure that I've had over 12 years working with and continuing to work with attorneys and real estate agents and like others, but in particular those two that you mentioned, And you're right. I do think that they will experience tougher moments in their markets, and that kind of comes and goes, but that's what it is to run a business, right? It's always highs and lows in terms of running a business. But most understand that people who refer to them usually do so exclusively, right? They're not referring one client to 12 different attorneys or one potential like friend of theirs to 8 different real estate agents. They're usually referring the agent that they know the best and has a relationship with them and is actually choosing to refer to them. So for my clients, the focus is on maintaining the relationship they have with those referral sources, with those people who can and will refer. Regarding the approach being too soft, the truth is, I think if you really look at if asking for referrals is like a hard line approach, if that's how you view asking for referrals, then you may look at what I do, generating referrals without asking by building the right kinds of relationships as soft. But really, what I'm teaching my clients to do is to respect their relationships. And I believe that constantly asking people to refer you is actually damaging your relationships. So your focus should be on respecting them. So I don't really think it's a question of soft or hard, right? But I think it's more about like, how do you want to show up? How do you want to show up in the marketplace? How do you want to show up in your relationships? How do you want to be seen? And how do you want to be known? And I think with the people that I work with, respecting those relationships is paramount to how they want to do business.
Interesting. You're a tough cookie to crack. If everyone now buys your book and starts applying this method and starts asking for referrals without asking and starts building relationships, do you feel it will kind of lose its authenticity? So does this method really depend on being the only one doing it?
Well, the good news is no, because I wouldn't have much of a business if that were actually the case, and I could only work with one client at a time. But generating the referrals, the way that I teach it, right? The framework, the methodology, the science, it isn't like everyone's starting to send the same direct message because there was some guru who had success with this one message. Now all of a sudden you get that, what it's like we've all experienced that. We all start getting the same type of message in our DMs over LinkedIn or Instagram. They all look the same. It's because everyone's learning from the same person, right? And it's not like running an ad or putting up a billboard with the same copy because it's shown to work for one other person. If you're doing what I teach correctly and from the right place, your contacts, right? Your people, they don't feel like you're doing anything to them. They feel like you're taking care of them because they are taking care of you by sending you referrals. So, I mean, let me put it in this way. Let me ask you a question, right? So, Anna, if I referred a potential client to you, how would that make you feel?
Probably that I need to return a favor, and as I'll start thinking about, I feel appreciated, but also I'll start thinking about how I can support you too, because we are building the relationship. You showed me trust, and I would start thinking about how can I add value as well in one way or another, whether it's referral or how can I support you.
Right. And that's exactly right. Because here's the thing, you may never be able to refer to me, right? That is the reality. People always feel like, well, someone refers to me, I have to refer to them. I'm like, just because someone can refer to you doesn't mean you're going to come across people that you can refer back to them. Some of us do and some of us don't. And so we don't need to look at it from the perspective of, if you refer to me, I have to refer to you. What you said first though was it's like you would feel good, right? So if I referred a client to you, you would feel good. You would know that I trusted you. And the question that I'm always asking my clients, right, is that don't you feel like you should show gratitude and thankfulness to the people referring you? And you answered that, right? You said yes. And so we
Okay.
come from the place of we feel like it is the right thing to do to take care of the people who are taking care of our business. And
Mm.
if we can refer to them, great. That's not what most people can do. So we have different strategies in place to show that care and thankfulness to the people who are referring. And that does encourage them to continue to refer because
Mm.
we are not getting a referral from them, saying thanks, and then ghosting them for 9 months.
Yeah. I do think though it's a little bit easier for someone like you who is good looking, charming, well connected to ask for referrals without asking. Many of us have sales teams and we usually do not hire our people based on them being very beautiful and charming. how can we apply to our sales teams? So for example, is there part of training where you can actually create that mindset with your sales team? Is it possible?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for calling me beautiful. That was very kind. I appreciate that. Thankfully, I would say that the hundreds of introverts that I have had the pleasure to work with over the years who've implemented my system would tell you that you do not have to have my charm or my personality to generate referrals. When I first built this entire system, I did build it for myself because I was overcoming a business failure and was starting my second business and did not want to land as a two-time member in the business failure club. So I was really focused on what can I do to not fail and to be able to generate more clients. And referrals was what I found. And so when the first couple of people started learning from me, my big question was, is this based on Stacey? Like, is this based on who I am or what I do? Like my industry, I was a business coach, right? And so is it based on my personality? Is it based on my industry? And actually the first two people I taught it to, one was a financial advisor, the other was an attorney, and they were, as they would self-describe, huge introverts. So my very first chance to be like, okay, let's see how this works for them had nothing to do with anything about who I was or how I behaved. It really is, though, about leaning into who you are in authentic ways. And that matters if you're going to be able to develop referrals, right? It does mean you have to care about people. It does mean you have to be willing to build relationships. If you'd rather sit behind a screen and let an algorithm generate all your leads and potential clients for you, you can do that. There are strategies out there, and then you can look at more digital marketing and things like that to do that.
Mm.
So if you're wanting to sit behind a screen and not develop relationships, I would say don't use my system. My system is not going to be the right fit for you. But if you are willing to be like, yeah, I don't have to be an extrovert to care and to build a relationship with someone, then definitely what I teach will work for you. I will say though, if you are dead inside and you see everyone by only what they can give you, my
Mm.
process will not work for you. And quite frankly, I don't want it to.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's a great sales approach, among other things. But where is this ethical line between genuine gratitude and building that genuine connection and relationship, and kind of engineering goodwill designed to bring a business, especially for your sales team? So, for example, as a business owner, I have genuine great connections with other business owners. We are friends, we support each other. And even if they never send me a referral, I just adore them and I'll support them all the way. But my sales team, I expect them not to just be nice and have a lot of friends. I expect them to bring results. So where is that line? How ethical is it? How far can you push it? Because a sales team builds this relationship with a purpose in mind, and the purpose is not to gain as many friends as possible.
Yeah, I think seeing this as that genuine gratitude versus engineering goodwill, I think that really comes down to a person's value system. And I think that deserves probably a little bit of a conversation because if you feel like taking care of people who take care of your business, or if you, as a salesperson, if you feel like taking care of someone who has referred potential clients for you, right, to you, to the business you're working for, if you feel like taking care of them is actually engineering goodwill, then I'm probably not going to change your mind. If that's your value system and you feel like, hey, if I take care of you because you took care of me, I'm engineering something, I completely disagree. I don't believe that's what it is at all. But that's rooted in who you are and what you believe. And I'm probably not going to be the one that's going to change that for you. For me, right? I mean, personally, I think if you believe taking care of other people is what it looks like for people to take care of you, and you believe that's engineered goodwill, I mean, for me, I just think you're wrong. But if you believe that, I'm not going to change your mind. For the clients that I work with, it really is coming down to being thankful and grateful and wanting to acknowledge those who refer to us. And even when you're with a sales team, it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing when you're looking at it from a sales team's perspective. Those are individual humans on your sales team. And the way my methodology works, it's not just like running around all day long around town or on a bunch of virtual meetings on Zooms and just being nice to people, right? There is a strategy, there's a structure behind it. I mean, I know these type of questions, we're not really digging into what that looks like with the strategies and the different methodology and framework and the different strategies that flow into it. There is actually like the science behind how this works and what this looks like, but it always comes from that place of I want to take care of the people who are taking care of my business. And if someone is going to choose to refer to me, I want to make sure that I'm taking care of them as well. And that is a value prop. It's like a value set that you have in yourself. And that is a specific way someone thinks.
You're such an eloquent speaker. I'm almost old, but I'm also old enough to know that every system looks perfect in a book. The book, you think this is amazing, you start implementing it, it's sometimes a disaster. Tell me about a time where your method failed completely, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, so it's interesting because this question I hear you like say, okay, everything looks perfect in a book, and I'm like, yes, and I have two books out there, right? So, and the two systems, right, or the strategies that I break down in each of my books. So my first book is generating business referrals without asking, and my second book is the referable client experience. Those are actually approaching two different strategies. They're two of the 20 that I actually teach to my clients. And those, of course, for me have been taught for years and years before I actually wrote a book about them, because if not, I wouldn't have any stories to tell, right? And be able to look at where things worked and in some cases where things didn't work. I even talk about this in my second book, The Referable Client Experience. I talk about where I saw someone who wanted to implement what I teach from a referable client experience, like what that strategy looks like, but wanted to do it their own way and wanted to leave out key pieces that I told him you need to do if you want to have success. And when I find that when people don't have success with what I'm teaching them, unfortunately, it typically does come down to human error. It does come down to forgetting to do something, overlooking to do something. I'll be honest, sometimes thinking you know better than actually what my process has proven to show over the last 12 years and just deciding to do it differently. That's when I see people not get the success they're ultimately going to get. But I also want to say this, that doesn't mean that referral generation is automatic. Like every Tuesday, you're going to get a referral because you happen to put my processes and procedures in place. We don't look at it from like a every single week, every single month. We look at things on a quarterly basis and a yearly basis. And the goal is to increase referrals, right, on an ongoing way. But we recognize referrals are coming from people. These are not leads being generated from an algorithm. So you have to look at the whole process and system a little bit differently to ultimately see that ROI and the results that you're getting over the long term, not in 30 days, right? Sometimes you got to wait months and maybe that first year to really see the system start working. But when things do fail, like I remember the story I tell in the book, Referable Client Experience, about a guy who was like, hey, I'm going to take some of your ideas to improve my client experience, but I think the language pieces you're telling me to say, I really don't need that. I think my clients love me anyways, and they're going to refer me. I'm like, well, they're not referring you now. So not doing much different, but maybe one or two things isn't going to change you getting more referrals. And a few months later, he was back and he was like, nothing's changed. I'm like, I know, because you decided to remove a part of the whole process that is needed for this to work. You can't just like willy-nilly decide what parts you'll do and what parts you won't. And in that part, it was a language piece with him. And that was the piece that he was like, I think I'm fine. And then it didn't work. And that stinks. I don't want that for anybody. But of course, that can happen.
Actually, I think it's well known that when things go wrong, business owners love excuses. Same here.
Yeah.
So, what's the most common excuse you hear from your clients when they do not follow through? And how do you call them out on it?
Yeah, so I am known for being a very much straight shooter. We metric everything. When clients work with me, regardless of the three ways that I work with clients, when clients work with me, regardless of the way, we are going to metric everything, and there is going to be a spreadsheet dashboard tracking everything because it's how we know A, if it's working, and B, if we need to modify or tweak. So I am a big proponent on we do the tracking so we know what's happening, and you have to be implementing. And my clients are like any other business owners out there in the world. Sometimes you're on course and you're doing what you need to do, and sometimes you fall off course and you stop doing what you know you need to do. And so really for me, it always comes down to what's the reason behind the excuse, right? And so that not following through because the most common one is I'm too busy, right? Oh, I just got busy and I just forgot. That just tells me we don't have a process and a system in place to remind you of what it's time to do when it's time to do it. So I'll send them back to the automation and delegation, and being able to outsource that whole process. I'll send them back to that training module and be like, hey, you shouldn't have to be trying to remember to do these things by memory. And you shouldn't be getting so busy that you can't remember to do this because no, there's not a system or another person on your team telling you to. Like that's part of building it and then implementing it and making sure there's a way for that. And so sometimes it's just redirecting on why they have the excuse is like, that's because you don't have this piece built so that you don't have to remember, right? And other times, right, they just kind of fall off the wagon because they get so busy and so overwhelmed, right? They don't have the capacity at that moment to know what's the priority and what's not. And that's an important thing that we have to pay attention to. And so, from that perspective, I have to sometimes help them and step in and be like, okay, wait, if you're so busy, you're forgetting to do the things that are growing your business, we need to help prioritize what you're focused on and what is most important.
Sounds interesting, theoretically. Let's get from theory to practice. If I completely apply your system to a T, how many referrals as a small business owner can I expect per month? And will it actually replace my marketing efforts?
Yeah, so here's the thing I always tell folks. What I teach is not a one size fits all approach, right? I'm not going to look at any business owner and be like, you should get 50 new referrals in a year without knowing anything about their business. We actually base everything that I teach on a formula. And it's a formula that talks about like where you are now, right? And then what is possible to where you want to go. So that formula is based on, okay, how many referrals are you receiving now? And I don't just look at like in the last 30 days. I look at is what's the average number of referrals that you are receiving on a yearly basis. If we looked at the last 3 years of your business, and let's say 1 year you received 20 referrals, and the next year you received 30 referrals, and the next year you received 25 referrals. Well, then we would know over 3 years, your average number of referrals is 25. Then I would have to look at, well, how many people are giving you those 25 referrals? And let's say it's coming from 15 people. Now I'm looking at saying, okay, we average 25 referrals in a year. We've got 15 people giving referrals. The first thing we pay attention to is the ability to get more referrals from those 15 people you have. So if those 15 are giving 25, what would it look like for those 15 to actually give 30 or maybe 35? Then if you're like, well, I really want more referrals than that, of course, right? Usually people want to double at least what they're making. So you want to go from 25 to 50. I will say and be very upfront and clear and be like, you can't get that from 15 people. The 15 people have shown they can only give about 25 referrals in a year. Maybe we can increase that to 35, maybe 40 by taking care of them in a different way, the strategy I'm going to teach you, but you need more people referring you. So then we create a goal for how many more people do we need? Maybe it's another 5, maybe it's another 10 that can come in and support getting you to that 40 or 50 referrals you need. So this isn't like I could just pull a number out and be like, here, you should get 5 more. Here, you should get 15 more. It's really based on what's happening in your business now, what have you been shown to do with referrals, and what we think is possible. Because obviously there's work involved for us to get you to that place. So that's the one thing I always tell folks to first consider is it's not a one size fits all approach. It is based on results. It is based on reality for you. And then it's also based on knowing what you're going to have to do to get the next level of results to increase the number of referrals and probably increase the number of people referring to you. The hardest thing for me is to have a conversation with someone who's like, I'm getting 10 referrals a year and I'd like to get 100 next year. And I'm like, we need to do some massive amount of expectation setting because that's probably not possible. And then my next question is always, if you get 10 referrals a year, can you handle 100 referrals? Like, could you handle, like, if 75 of those turned into clients, does your business have the capacity to handle that? And usually the answer is, oh, no, I can only work with like 15 people a year. I'm like, then why do you want 100 referrals? If you need 15 clients in a year, if we could get you to a 50% close rate, you only need 30 referrals. Like, why are we focused on 100 when 30 is all you need if you can close 50% into those 15 clients? Like, it's also setting expectations with my business owner clients in terms of like, what do you need and what are you looking for? And then matching that to what is reality. Now, If you go on my website and you're like, okay, I want to work with Stacey, you are going to see us say our goal is to double, triple, or quadruple your referrals in your first year. And if we can do it faster than that, we're going to, right? But that double, triple, quadruple is still based on your results, and you're still going to have to put the work involved to actually make that happen.
Awesome. I love it. Now, the last question, which is the most challenging question. Tell us something no one knows about Stacey Randall.
Oh,
Do you collect toothbrushes? Do you have 50 guinea pigs at home? Tell us something. Throw me a bone, something interesting.
I get asked this question all the time, and I'm like, there's just nothing really all that terribly interesting about me. Like, oh, this question always stumps me. You think I would have like an answer in my back pocket to be prepared to answer it. I don't know if there's anything that would be okay. So this isn't really all that exciting, but I would say I am somebody who will rewatch movies over and over again or rewatch series because they are feel good for me. So like right now, I think I'm on my fourth time, maybe my third time, like rewatching the Gilmore Girls. Like I watched it when I was younger, and then about a couple years ago, my daughter got into it. I rewatched it with her, and now for whatever reason, I'm just rewatching it again. I know there's a lot of new stuff I could be watching, but sometimes I just like to go back to the ones that are like feel good for me. And so I will rewatch series and movies many, many, many times, probably more times than you should.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Stacey, for being here. That was Stacey Randall teaching business owners to get referrals without asking.